for the Liberal Democrats, Christine Jardine, Paul Sweeney for Labour, Hannah Bardell for the SNP, and Luke Graham for the Conservatives. Now, they would have been terribly disappointed if I didn't ask them about Brexit, and it's a nice day, so I don't want to disappoint them, so we will talk about Brexit. Luke Graham, we were promised a white paper on the negotiating tactics. We were promised it before the EU Council towards the end of June. What's happened? This white paper seems to have gone missing in action.
Well, the Prime Minister addressed this issue in the Chamber earlier today. I mean, the government's very clear. We've got a day of full debate that's coming out, and the government will be very clear about its position next Tuesday. I think it's going to be a day of robust debate, and I'm sure many colleagues are looking forward to it.
That is a euphemism, Roy. There's going to be some good old-fashioned argy-bargy. Some of you are relatively new to this place. You are going to be here for a long time next Tuesday, aren't you?
I don't think any of us were expecting to get out early.
Hannah Bardell, you are probably the most experienced parliamentarian of this august group at the moment. Just where are we with Brexit now? The UK government obviously sees things very differently from your government in Scotland, but there does seem to be a feeling that more progress needs to be made, and it needs to be made quicker.
I think it's a very good question, and I think it's not a question easy answered because nobody really knows, including the government, which is hugely concerning. So we're in a shambolic situation where the white paper that, as you rightly said, was promised still hasn't transpired, that we're only going to have a day of debate. So just for folk at home, we need to remember that there's about 15 amendments coming back from the House of Lords. That will be 4.5 hours of voting, which is a complete waste of time. Let's not forget that most parliaments in the world, including the Scottish Parliament, have electronic voting. And Brexit threatens our economy, our livelihoods. It's going to have, according to some of the worst case scenarios that are being prepared for by civil servants. This isn't politicians saying this at the weekend. There were some really quite frightening reports. Civil servants saying that medicines were going to run out, food was going to run out, fuel was going to run out, and places like Cornwall and Scotland were going to be the worst affected. Scotland did not vote for Brexit. We need a better response than this, and we need it very quickly.
Of course, it's got to be said, you are going to put in a full shift on Tuesday. You will be in the House of Commons for more than 12 hours. If you don't know your views on Brexit by now, what have you been doing for the last year?
Oh, I'm very clear on our views on Brexit, that we do not want to leave the single market or the customs union. But the point is that this government is being very opaque on the way it's approaching it, wishy-washy, not getting any proper information, and trying to squeeze everything into a very short period of time. We may well have a robust debate, as Luke says, but the point is that this is one of the biggest issues facing the UK for a generation, and when it comes down to the line, we're getting a day for debate. I don't think that's good enough.
Just to come back on that, I don't think it's fair to say the government's being opaque. I think we've had extensive Brexit debates, we've had statements in the House, we've had questions. Every single question time that takes place in the House on every department comes around to questions about Brexit. It is incredibly, hang on, let me finish. It's an incredibly complicated process that we're going through. But I mean, the government is at least trying. It's trying, but it's same old sound bites from the opposition too. I voted Remain. No opposition politicians come to me with a positive proposal to say, look, let's work together. Here's a great amendment.
Let me bring the other two in here. First of all, Paul Sweeney, your party seems to have softened its stance ever so slightly, but it would be wrong to think that your party is not divided on this issue as some of the other parties are.
Our party is governed by a clear division, which is what we're looking to do is ensure that we obtain the benefits of the 6 tests we want. The benefits of the single market is the most critical aspect, and also the other test is the Northern Irish border, ensuring that the stability of our country is maintained. That's what the Tories are showing total contempt towards. There's been no proper debate about that issue in Parliament whatsoever, and we need to have a clear understanding of those issues and the implications that has. Cramming all of these votes into such a short space of time does not allow us to properly scrutinise it.
But it's part of the problem for your party. In England, at least, a lot of your MPs are sitting in constituencies which are Eurosceptic, so you have to trim and tack to try and keep everybody happy.
What we're trying to do is get the best outcome for the country as a result of the vote. We're not rejecting the result of the referendum. What we're saying is we're going to work to maintain the maximum benefits of the single market and the customs union to ensure that any economic damage is minimised and, if possible, avoided. That's what we're trying to do through a proposal which is much more ambitious than anything about shoehorning into the European Economic Area. It's about ensuring we build a bespoke architecture for Britain as part of a European relationship that ensures that we have continued benefits from the single market and the customs union for the UK. And that's what Labour's ambitious proposals bring to
Christine Jardine, sharp intake of breath there.
Take a breath.
No, a sharp intake of breath from you.
building a bespoke, the only way to stay effectively in the single market and the customs union is to be in the European
You've
Economic Area.
capitulated already,
In
Christine.
fact, the
Who do you
only
negotiate
way,
for?
if I'm finished, the only way to stay effectively in the single market and the customs union is to stay in the European Union. And I'd like to offer Luke an invitation. You come to us. You come and talk to Tom Rake, Vince Cable, and we will give you positive proposals, a positive way of doing what your constituents want, which is to stay in the European Union. My constituents, in fact, all of our constituents want to stay in the European Union. You come and talk to us and we will give you that positive
realistically, that is not going to happen, is it?
No, realistically, the Tories won't let it happen if they can. But what they have to bear in mind is that we're now in a situation where you and I are already, everybody here is £900 a year worse off. It's going to get worse. As Hannah says, there's been lots of reports about exactly what will happen. And frankly, I think Hannah was being a wee bit kind to the Tories about them being opaque. They're actually lost. They realise they've bitten off more than they can chew. And I never thought I would say that about a Conservative government. They're not being very coherent in their strategy. And they have, in fact, come across as incompetent. The only way we can do this, the only way we can all be better off, is to stay in the European Union.
OK, I'm going to give you a respite from Brexit, but somehow I think it might come in this next question. A year ago today, you lot would have probably been quite nervous because you were all candidates in the general election. We know how the general election went. Three of you are relatively new MPs. Hannah was here in the previous Parliament. Luke, what have you learnt about this place in the last year, and is it everything you think it should be?
It's not everything I should be, that I think it should be, but I think all my colleagues would probably share that as well. I think our job is to look at this great institution and see how we can try and make it better.
Hannah Bardell, as an old hand, what advice would you give to these ones who've only been here for a mere year?
Well, it's quite something to say an old hand at 3 years in. But what I would say is that this place continues to be hugely challenging in terms of the bureaucracy, in terms of the way things that are done. Brexit, I think, is going to be a seminal moment for the Parliament, because once those powers come back, how are all of the committees going to manage that? We have a huge issue for Scotland in the power grab that's taking place.
Oh, come on.
And
it's not a power grab. 119 powers are coming straight back.
Well, and let's be very clear, when we talk about proposals, we've actually put forward some very detailed proposals in Scotland's place in Europe, and Labour have been unfortunately all over the place.
You're an old hand, you know how to play this game. Let the new ones have a go. Paul, your view on this place a year in?
Well, I've had two opportunities to question the Prime Minister at PMQ since I was elected, which I've been quite lucky to do. And today I raised a question of a constituent of mine, young Georgie, who is 10 years old, orphaned child who's facing deportation. So I found it great that I'm able to bring serious constituency concerns straight to the Prime Minister to ensure that I get justice for my constituents. That's one of the most rewarding aspects of being a new Member of Parliament, being able to do that and hopefully get good outcomes for my constituents. And that's the issues that people really care about immigration, about the horrible hostile environment policy of the Tory party in this country, and the waging war against our social security and our public services through their austerity programme. Fighting back against that has been the most motivating aspect of being a new Member of Parliament.
Christine Jardine, final word to you. Before you were an MP, you were a special advisor telling MPs what to do and basically raising your eyebrows when they did what you said. It's a lot different when you're actually sitting there in the Commons, isn't it?
It is, but I think what you have to remember when you're in the Commons, that it's not actually about being here. Being here is a means to an end, and the means to the end is doing what your constituents want, looking after your constituents, pursuing the things that they've elected you to do. In my case, it was because they wanted to stay in the UK and they want to stay in the European Union. And being here means I can't be in Edinburgh West, but I'm working for Edinburgh West when I'm here.
We'll leave it there. We'll get you back in a year's time to see what it's like 2 years' time. But one and all, thank you very much for joining us at the moment. Gordon, back